Welcome back to Enter the Gungeon. Played majority. Is majority a word? I don't think it. Like majority, but what if you wanted to turn it into a verb? Majority? That doesn't sound like a word to me. Thank you for giving me something to distract myself with, Crispy, for the bits. Oh yeah, I have bits. Hope this doesn't interrupt the intro. You interrupted a bad bit with a good bit, so I'm happy. 26 months of time spent? Yes. And thank you, Lost Compass, for 8 months in a row. Almost time for a Twitch baby. Very nearly just let that hit me. It's a very small room. I feel like that should unlock a secret if I do that. And hello, Kente. I knew you were there. And hello, D-Soldier. I ain't catching that. Guess where it is. Oh, I got lucky. Give me something good. That's not something good. All I have is this, and it doesn't need that. So the main reason we're playing Gungeon is so I can talk about stuff I watched on Netflix on a very painful day off where I was just sitting around. So if you're not interested in hearing Flik ramble about things he watched on Netflix for 40 to 50 minutes, this might not be an episode for you, although bottom line is I'll probably spend like half an hour tops talking about them and then just yammer about things instead for the remaining little bit of the run. Probably around floor 3 as is tradition. Or the start of floor 4 at a push. We'll see though. I love that even like talking over Gungeon has become very systematic, I guess. Oh, there's some more bits, thank you, Crispy. I have more bits. I wonder how much more. Have you done a survey or something to get those? Hello, Trivate. So yeah, I got around to watching one thing that I'd kind of marked on my list from Netflix. Which we've spoken about before in terms of like, oh yeah, I've got that to watch, I just have to find the time to watch it. And then I watched another thing on a whim. And I'm going to save the thing I watched on a whim for second, because I want to build up to it, because it's very, very good. It's a documentary, so it's like real, but it's probably the best documentary I've watched on Netflix so far. I like it more than Making a Murderer. And I know it's weird to say that you like a documentary about someone getting screwed over by the justice system, but what I mean is it's much more impartial. So therefore you can draw your own conclusions. And I appreciate that. But we'll talk about that more once we get there. I see that you gave me more bits. Perhaps I have done a survey. Must have been a bloody good survey. Wilbur Burke. Was it Family Guy? Oh yeah, I absolutely watched Family Guy. It's a fantastic documentary about a deformed baby, a talking dog, and mentally unfit parents. Also Meg is there. And the other one. Chris, that's his name. Who is weird. That's his character. Anyway, the first thing I watched was not a documentary. Well, yeah, I guess it was. It was 2 seasons of a sort of documentary called The Toys That Made Us. And it is an episode, each episode is dedicated to a different toy from the childhood of people who are between the ages of, say, 30 and 50. I would say roughly. You can be on either end of that, but you know, as a rough estimate, like there's an episode on G.I. Joe, there's an episode on He-Man, on Barbie, Transformers, 2 seasons of 4, like, I can't remember if the episodes are half an hour long, they felt longer than that sometimes. But that's been on my to-watch list for quite a while, and people have been saying, yeah, watch it. And a lot of those toys were toys I played with, so I was interested. Had some issues with it right from the get-go. And I'd like to get those out of the way first, after Crispy satisfies his bit cravings. Final bits, nya.
Oh.
So, I don't know if you could find the intro to this program because it's a Netflix original series, but I want you to look on YouTube to see if it's there because it's one of the worst things. It's a boy and a girl going to like a Toys R Us and finding toys they like, but it's incredibly poorly animated. I assume they're going for like, oh, remember the 80s and when cartoons looked like this? 80s cartoons did not look like that. 80s cartoons look better than modern cartoons because they could afford better animation back then. And better animation quality or drawing quality. So the intro is just god-awful and it's got a terrible theme song. So that was very off-putting. Also, Now You Must Lurk. Hello, Thrifty Potato. I guess that Thrifty Potatoes are Kensei's kryptonite, which is why he's lurking. He doesn't want to get attacked. Let's see here. Unfinished gun, rocket-powered bullets. My phone is ringing, I think. I'll take unfinished gun just to have a gun, depending on what else we get. Anyway, then the narrator for the series started talking, and I took an immediate dislike to them. I think they've narrated other documentaries I've watched on Netflix, but I couldn't Oh, hello. Flak bullets. But I couldn't specifically tell you which ones. I recognised his voice. And I just, you know, there's people who don't like my voice. It's just nothing. I went very Scottish there. Nothing against them as a person. It's just their voice makes me want to die. I still stuck with it though, but that was very off-putting. They also tried to put in a lot of like forced humour with the narrator, and I was like, no, don't do that. It's a documentary about toys, so I know you don't have to be super serious, but still, don't do that. The other final issue I had with it was that each episode starts with a reenactment. I'd just like to reiterate, this is a documentary about toys and not anything to do with crime. But each episode starts with a reenactment of the person... You're interrupting me with these hymns. Oh, yeah, we'll be buying unfinished gun. With the person who invented the toy doing like their pitch at a boardroom, or the fable of how whatever toy it was about came to be. Those are utterly unnecessary. You do not need reenactments for someone thinking up a toy. Just say, oh, so-and-so thought up this idea in whatever year, and then start going through like talking head interviews and crap, you know, the stuff you're supposed to do in a documentary. But they felt the need to do reenactments about toys. Anyway, thank you, Vice President, for the bits while I was on that little rant. Here, have bits. Please call Michael Myers back. He keeps staring at me from outside my window. No, not until you've learned your lesson. Thank you, Alana, for the bits. Farm fresh bits here. Get your farm fresh bits here. Motions to crotch. Anyway, we're going to fight unfinished. I'll talk about the good things about this series once we've fought the boss, I guess. Yeah, I've not watched any crime stuff that's had reenactments because that just does not interest me at all. I want to see real. But yeah, that was very, very off-putting. I skipped past all of them after the first episode, so I don't want to watch a reenactment about inventing a What is this? Oh, it's Gatling Gun. I was like, am I fighting the tank on floor 1? But if you're willing to put up with those complaints I just made and remember some of the toy brands the episode's focused on, even the ones that I didn't know of, like the final episode of Season 2 is about Hello Kitty. I've heard of Hello Kitty, but I know nothing about its concept or creation or the problems it had. So it was kind of interesting. Even the Barbie one, which I'll talk about more, has a lot of interesting twists because Barbie has had a very weird upbringing, let's say. I also said I wouldn't continue talking about it until... What are you doing down there? Until the boss is dead. But... What a weird arena. I've had it before, it's just it's very rare. Because it's the easiest one to fight him in. But even with this... Mind you, it still feels faster than the Dead Cell bosses. It's given me a new appreciation for how fast the Gungeon bosses die after fighting some of those later Dead Cell bosses that they've added. It's like they have no concept of a nice, satisfying boss length. Bits and sub window gone on purpose? No, actually. That's weird. You're right, it's not there, but it was the cracked window style, right? Because I remember seeing it, I looked. Alert box? Huh. Event list? Oh, there we go. That was weird. I don't know why that didn't load back. It's there now. Yeah, the Dead Cell bosses came across as dull because they go on too long. It's like once you get it and it's like, oh yeah, got it, good, fine. That's the point at which you really want the fight to end one way or the other. And they didn't quite have that right. Oh, we got a gold shell case in there, didn't we? I shall purchase a key while it's still cheap. You saw the window but there was no sound. I heard the sound of it was worth it and I hear the humming right now. Do you not hear that? Thank you, Rye Dog, by the way, that's very generous. So you didn't hear Onion Knight? No, you do. Okay, good. Don't scare me like that. So I'm trying to remember what the very first episode of The Toys That Made Us was about. Oh, actually, no, I do have one more complaint. They do a lot of quick cut editing to try and instill humour. I don't want humour. I want cold hard facts. The best example I can give is from a season 2 episode where they're doing the history of Lego. And one of the Lego guys is talking about what they call the Lego system. And then every time someone says system, they cut back to that guy saying system. It's not funny, it's not clever, it's annoying. The system itself is interesting. It's the brand concept that Lego works with, where they have a very specific manner in which they make their blocks, so that if you buy a block today, it will work with a block made 40 years ago, or however long ago, 30 years. And that's interesting, but they turn it into a joke for apparently no reason. And there's a lot of little things like that, like very strange cuts, where they just jump back to someone laughing. So it's very badly edited. I don't know if that counts as direction or not. Either way, it got annoying. He hit me because I knocked him against the wall, so the arc of his shots changed. But on to the positive stuff. After I read that bits out. Or those bits. That there are those bits. For some reason I feel very energetic. Thank you, Red Dog, for the bits. Pointless jokes, you say? Yep, you got the bit of the joke there. Can someone go check what the very first episode was about? I think it was G.I. Joe, but I don't fully remember. It wasn't G.I. Yeah, I think it was maybe G.I. Joe then Barbie. That's how you make old people laugh, but it wouldn't be for like super old people. It's for people my age, and don't you dare insult me. Which is what I feel you might have been building to. Smoke, are you smoking yet? Are you saying there's some subliminal advertising going on here? Subliminal. Diction is important. Ask any Scottish person, and they'll say, oh no. The run was going so well. I'm going to resist for now. Oh, that's right. Star Wars was the first episode. Does it go Star Wars, G.I. Joe, Barbie? Is that right? Yeah, of course they did Star Wars first. Although, the history of Star Wars toys was interesting. More interesting than I thought it was. I already knew a little bit about it because I knew about George Lucas basically like getting conned by the toy industry and then conning them back for the prequels. I kind of already heard that on the various other sources. But yeah, the history of like no one wanting to take the Star Wars toys because George Lucas didn't want anything to leak about the film before it was done. So no one would take it because normal turnaround time for a toy was like a year or two. So then they had to go with this unknown brand. Oh, that was not a good idea. And they got a ridiculously good deal because George Lucas didn't know anything about deals back then. And they made a lot of money. And they did a very famous thing where one Christmas they didn't have the new line of Star Wars toys ready, so they sold cardboard that promised you would eventually get them when they were done. Why didn't I dodge roll there? Maybe I will use Casey. Star Wars, Barbie, He-Man, G.I. Joe. Alright. The Barbie episode was second. I must admit I skipped the He-Man one because they already have a documentary specifically about He-Man that I watched, so I felt like I got enough information from that. It was still interesting. I just didn't want to watch anything else because it'd just be treading over the same stuff that was covered in a documentary focused purely on He-Man. Well, and She-Ra. So that was interesting. I mostly started watching it because I knew that there was an episode on Transformers, but I ended up learning a lot more than I thought I would care about regarding like how the toy industry works. I knew I collected G.I. Joe. Transformers toys and G.I. Joe toys were the two that I collected the most of when I was a kid. Because you could get like individual figures that were cheap, and there was a huge playsets, but we were poor, so I never got any of them. But they did the small size stuff, so you could collect a bunch of figures, play with them, and have a good time with them. You didn't need the big sets. If you just had like the little 3 1/4 inch G.I. Joes or the smaller Transformers. So that was my childhood, and learning more about like G.I. Joe when it started was much closer to like a doll. Although they don't like it when you call it a doll because they thought up the phrase action figure to sell it to boys because they didn't want to play with dolls. And that kind of crap. That was interesting, and I'd say the most interesting story was probably... Hang on, I'm debating. It was probably the Barbie one, just because... Like, there's a lot of controversy in a lot of the episodes, like G.I. Joe after Vietnam sold very poorly because no one wanted to be reminded of the war. Barbie was based on a slut, which might not come as a surprise, but I mean, like, very specifically a prostitute doll. Everybody knows about the Hello Kitty vibrator, but there's lesser known stuff. But I've forgotten exactly what point I was going to go into before I started talking about that, unfortunately. Because when you watch a whole documentary series in one go, it all blends together. But it was interesting. So even if you're only interested in, like I was, Transformers and G.I. Joe to a certain extent, you learn more about... Oh, the toy industry. Yes, that's where I was going. That's why I brought up G.I. Joe. I collected the G.I. Joes, and it became very obvious that they would just kind of do recolors of certain characters, change their helmet a little bit, paint them a different color, and then, oh hey, here's new character. So I learned a lot more about that process, and another one called labeling, which was very, very prominent for Star Trek toys. Because nobody had any idea what to do with Star Trek, so they kept on passing it around shitty toy companies because Gene Roddenberry had no idea. So what they would do is they had existing product, so they literally would just slap Star Trek stickers on them and sell them, which led to things such as the Spock helmet, which was a helmet with a police siren on it that said Spock on it. And that was a Star Trek original series licensed toy. Which was very interesting. They didn't have an episode on My Little Pony, which I thought was quite surprising. Maybe that just means that the story of their... Oh no. The story of their conception was very boring. You're going to get demon-headed. Or maybe not. I wish there was an option to turn off these shitty mid-boss fights of bosses you've already killed, or mid-bosses you've already killed. He didn't do a good job when you made him, although he did die super quick. You remember the Spock helmet? It was hilarious. Well, I did like when they kind of cut between everybody laughing about that because they forgot it was a thing. There was also, it didn't really touch on what I would think would be a quite interesting subject for a documentary, which is collecting toys as an adult, because they do, like, they talk to talking heads who are just adult fans who have these ridiculously huge collections of toys. What's the super rarest thing? Like, there's a Boba Fett with a missile attachment where you press a button and his backpack fires a missile, and it was a pre-order only thing, and it never made it to market because some other toy that had those shooting missile thingies, a kid managed to shoot himself in the mouth with it and die from choking on it. I guess that ban never held up though, because I remember having tons of Transformers where you could, like, stick a plastic thing into a bazooka and fire it by pulling a switch. Maybe it just got banned in America and not Britain, I don't know. Oh, look. You're not saying because you're working, but you'll be back later. Nice. Or you'll be watching later, sorry. Death by shitty plastic missile. I don't know, they didn't go into detail, they just said that happened, so they had to cancel that particular model. So, as a result, there's only ever production models, and thus it's like the rarest Star Trek toy in existence. And everybody wants it, and it's worth however many thousands. But none of the other episodes really touched on that collecting side, which I thought was a bit of a shame. So a program that did that, and did it for stuff like, I don't know, magic cards, or Pokemon cards, that kind of crap, that's a documentary that I'd be very interested in seeing. Be it on Netflix or just at all, that is. Did they increase how much damage Demon Head does? Because I feel like I'm doing more damage than before. And the last time we had this gun, it was with a synergy. And with Barbie, all the controversy was, well, if you've seen that Simpsons episode with, what was the doll in that called? Malibu Stacy, that's it. Like, there's an episode where she says, like, oh, school is hard, or let's leave it to the boys. So they kind of address that sexism. That's a real thing that they based that on. Cold reality. What did this synergize with? Oh, I saw it had a synergy, but not what with. Oh, Shotgun Cola. But she has a new hat. Exactly, that episode. So that was based on a real thing where a talking Barbie came out. She said a bunch of generic stuff and a bunch of stuff about boys, but very specifically, one of the phrases she could say was "math is hard," as Alana just pointed out. Like, maths is hard. I'm going to Britishise it by adding the S. Maths is hard. She said a bunch of other stuff, but everybody focused on that one. But they kind of used the controversy to their advantage, and they didn't quite mind it. So that was interesting. Another thing is the people behind Barbie, the old guard, not the people who are handling it now, they were ruthless AF. To the point where, I can't remember if it was Mattel that owned Barbie or if they were competing. It was Mattel or Hasbro, whichever one didn't have Barbie. They saw how successful Barbie was, so they planned to bring out a doll of their own that would do something different that Barbie hadn't. And the people who they made, I think they called them the Pink Squad or the Pink Barbie Squad, was essentially a bunch of spies that snuck around on the production floors to work out what the Mattel owns that Hasbro doesn't, so it must have been Hasbro that was doing it. Snuck around the Hasbro floor to try and work out what's this thing they've got. And it was a doll called Gem or Jewel or something like that, and the big thing was she was a rock star, because Barbie had had a few different jobs by then, but she'd never been a rock star. So then this ruthless person who was running Barbie at the time was like, okay, we normally take like half a year to get a new Barbie out, we're doing this in 2 months, we're going to beat them to market with Barbie as a rock star. And they just wrecked them, and she laughs about it. She said, oh, when they did eventually come out with their Rockstar doll, everybody thought that they were ripping off Barbie, when actually it was the other way around. But, well, I guess you can kind of prove that by the documentary, but at the time, which is when it mattered, everybody thought the other way around. So they were ruthless. Although then apparently Bratz came along, and that's kind of what killed Barbie for a while, and then they're talking to these old guard people. They're like, oh, Bratz came along when we were in charge, they wouldn't have lasted a day. You know what? I believe them. They came across as utterly ruthless. You know, no, I don't really need to heal and dig a hit again, so never mind, no I won't. So yeah, of all the episodes, well, I almost didn't watch the Barbie one, because I thought, I don't care about Barbie. I almost didn't watch the Hello Kitty one, but the Barbie one was definitely very interesting. You see the most ruthless business in that episode. You see some breaking of the law in other episodes. But yeah, that's the only one where it just cold. So cold. I'm curious if there's any synergies with the icebreaker, and that would be worth getting it, because I don't want to do a Casey run because I'll lose. So I'm kind of thinking get rid of Casey and Molotov launcher because it sucks, and see what we get. Don't tell the internet that I gun munched Casey. Never mind, it doesn't even want it. Never mind. Well, you can tell them now because it's not true. Of course it doesn't want it. It's not a gun. And trash cannon because it is trash. So that was pretty much all I had to say about the Toys That Made Us. It's on Netflix, 2 seasons for like 4 episodes each. Well, we didn't exactly get a good draw, but that's alright. We can use it to clear this floor if nothing else. So Star Wars, Star Trek, Barbie, G.I. Joe, Transformers, He-Man, Hello Kitty. Is that it? Did I say G.I. Joe? I think I did. The Transformers one was good because I already knew most of the story of Transformers toys because I collected them as a kid, and as an adult I wanted to know more. They got Peter Cullen to do like talking about it and stuff. Everybody knows that the 1980 whatever cartoon movie was a cold-hearted decision to kill off as much of the cast as possible so they could bring out a new wave of toys. I love that every single talking head on that particular episode was like, you know, fine, do that to introduce new characters, but if you touch Optimus Prime, there's going to be hell to pay. And then of course they killed him off and suffered for it as a result. It never recovered. Like, I knew the stuff about Takara, I think it's called Takara toys in Japan, essentially being Transformers, but getting remarketed in America with the help of Marvel, a Marvel writer who thought up like Autobots, Decepticons, all that stuff. But yeah, I love them talking about that. It's like, you don't touch Optimus Prime. Never ever. And I've heard Peter Cullen tell this story before because I've watched numerous interviews with him where him and Frank Welker, who voices Megatron, they were reading through the script and say, "Are you killing me?" He's like, "Yeah, I think you're killing me," and them both being in shock because they knew it was a mistake. And here Peter Cullen, he goes into detail about how he puts on a voice for Optimus Prime. It's close to his actual voice, but he puts on like a deeper tone, a more authoritative tone, and I didn't know that that was based on his brother who was a soldier. That was quite interesting to hear about. So yeah, for me that was definitely the best episode, even if it wasn't the most informative. Saw a bunch of toys that I had as a kid, still might, somewhere in a box. I still remember my little heart breaking as a kid when I watched that Transformers movie and saw Optimus Prime die. That's when I became a cynic. My childhood died with Optimus Prime. Even if they brought him back in the TV series, I'd long given up on it by then. Gamma Ray, that's what we were using. Oh yeah, Peter Cullen voices ER as well, yeah. If that's what someone said. I don't know if he voices ER in the Kingdom Hearts games, now that you've said that. Oh, he's a jammed one. That's why he wasn't dying. My copy of the movie says Optimus Prime will return in. You see, that's what they did because of the blowback. Like, seeing Ironhide and Ratchet and all them die, that's sad, but seeing Prime die was a cardinal sin. So, in reissues of the movie, they added, "Don't worry, Optimus Prime will return." Also, in Generation 2 of the cartoon series, there's one where they find the floating in space grave they made for Optimus, and the whole shtick is he's a zombie type thing because the Quintessons, is that what they were called? The creators of the Cybertronian race? They like got in his head of his corpse, brought him back, but made him evil, like to trick the Autobot fleet to go to somewhere to get blown up. That episode ends with him sacrificing himself and dying again, essentially. That episode ends with a big flash thing at the end saying, "Don't worry, Optimus Prime will return in The Return of Optimus Prime," which was the next 2 episodes. So they knew they buggered up. No, we ain't taking that. But it was already too late. People had crashed out. Peter Cullen acknowledged as well that a lot of people see Optimus Prime as a father figure. I hadn't really thought about it ever as that, but coming from a single parent home, maybe that's why seeing him die affected me as much as it did as a kid. And I never just thought about it that way before. Transformers animated movie was also the first time I saw swearing in a cartoon. Because Ultra Magnus, I think I mentioned this before, but Ultra Magnus says like, "Open, damn it," when he's trying to use the Matrix of Leadership for the first time. Or "Why the hell won't this open?" He says something like that, and of course, very famously, there's a cut of the movie where Spike says "shit," but that wasn't in the cut. They made it to Europe. That was to make sure all the robot violence could be included. Although I do now have the 30th anniversary Blu-ray, which includes the cut where Spike says, I can't remember the exact line he says, like "it didn't do shit," or something like that. Well, this is an animated movie for children, keep in mind. You don't swear in those. Anyway, I'd said like 10 minutes ago that was all I had to say, but then I got onto the Transformers episode and went off on one, so I think for realsies now, that's everything I had to say about it. Do I want to not have to worry about keys again, or do I want to take a chance on a synergy? I think I want to not have to... Oh! Okay. Ruby Carbine? Oh, it is a Ruby Carbine, it's not lying. Ooh. It bounces. I wonder if it's more damage now. Let's try this as a boss weapon. Sorry, I talk too much, so now my voice already hurts. Look, always Casey Jones, who've changed to their alternative account from probably Kensey's. Oh wait, no, I've said that before, and Kensey's been present as well, hasn't he? I still think you're Kensey. I'm not using Casey on insert boss here. Oh, it burns as well. Small clip though. Damage seems okay. Not amazing, but I don't really have a better boss option. Do I? I could poison him as well, but... It's not bad. It's not great with a small clip size, but it's not bad. I will move on to talking about the documentary that I haven't fully finished watching. I have 2 episodes left, and honestly... Damn it. There was part of me that was like, oh, I don't want to stream, I want to watch the end of this. The documentary is called The Staircase. Please don't go Google it, because I'll tell you about it after this boss. I guess I could have used the mahogany to blow away some of the shots. That's what I could have done. I don't think it would have killed him any faster, mind you. Oh. I'll read that in a minute. He is dying slower than I was expecting. Does Flik bullets have a damage down that I'm forgetting? Oh, it was Demon's Head we were using before, that's right. Because that seems to be doing more damage. Yeah, it is. Like, discernibly so. Alright, we'll use Ruby Carbine as a room clearer then. Thank you, Rido. Privilege, thanks for deciding to stream instead of watching Netflix. You're welcome. Oh, right, it's a mimic. I forgot that would apply to totems as well. And by totems I mean pedestals. Mesh shotgun's fine as well. Might as well take the heart because why not? Alright, so anyway, The Staircase. It's a 13-part documentary about a murder. Well, about a crime. I don't know where the secret room is on this floor. It's probably to the left of this. Fair enough. So, staircase, or the staircase, whatever it's called. Is this floor 3 or floor... Ah. Never mind, we will be talking about it for the whole thing then, probably. Set up to the staircase is that a writer in his 50s? No, it must be 60s. Early 60s. He's out at the pool with his wife, having watched a film they rented from Blockbuster in... I think it was the early 2000s. Yeah, it must have been the early 2000s. They drank, they went out to the pool. He stayed there. She said that she had to get up early to do something in the morning. So she leaves him, he stays by the pool. And I believe in the morning, he discovers her at the bottom of the stairs. Stairs within the house, not stairs outside the house. Bleeding out. He calls an ambulance. They come, but she's already dead. And the whole series kind of revolves around whether or not she fell because she was drunk and was also on Valium and cracked her head open, or if she was pushed, or if they were wounds indicative of being assaulted and then she was just placed at the bottom of the stairs to cover it up. And with Making a Murderer, which is also exceptionally good, although I would say this is proven... What did that just do there? Made a sound because I tried to fire, but it was empty. And with Making a Murderer, I kind of covered what my feelings were when that finished, or when I finished watching that in an Eyes episode. I feel like the guy in that did do it, but if you ignore the evidence planted by police, there would not be enough for a conviction, so it'd have to be not guilty, even though I think he did it. This is a case where I'm 100% certain this guy is innocent and his wife fell down the stairs because she was drunk. And she just fell in such a manner that resulted in her death. And there's so little evidence to imply he did anything to her. And I am going to spoil like some of the revelations, so if you do plan to watch it, you might not want to listen. But he does get found guilty, and he goes to jail for 8 years. And now in the final 2 episodes, I believe he takes a plea bargain to just so that he can be done with it. And the sister of his wife, her grief turned into pure spite, so she fell out with the rest of the family who believed his innocence, and she just would not let him get out of jail unless in some fashion he admitted he did murder her sister. It's a lot more sad than making a murderer, because the guy seems exceptionally affable. He's a nice guy. He is very well spoken, which I guess he's a writer, so that makes sense. He does not come across like someone who in a fit of rage would beat his wife to death and push her down the stairs. Put it that way. But like I mentioned at the start of the episode, unlike Making a Murderer, unlike Mastermind, unlike whatever the other criminal documentaries I've talked about, where the documentary maker stays out of it. He is just there. He focuses on the family and the defense. He doesn't do voiceover. He doesn't speak to people. Well, he speaks like twice just to get clarity for what was said. But he stays out of it. He stays as an observer, which is exactly what you should do, because otherwise there's the risk of putting forward a bias. Like, Making a Murderer is very good, but it's very clear that the documentary maker has the belief that the guy was innocent. So it's framed in that way. Everything is framed in the way that he's innocent. Whereas here it's just observation, and it's much more compelling because of that. Hello, Blizzle Cake. So that, coupled with the story and the revelations, the prosecution assumes that he beat his wife with a blunt object, despite there not being enough room for it to be physically possible. They get a forensic expert to say that... Oh, this is a mimic, yes. What happens if I knock it off the edge with Casey? Oh. No, it doesn't get knocked off the edge. They get a forensic expert to say, yep, these blood splatters and everything here, this is 100% proof that she was beaten to death by some blunt object. They assume it to be a fire stoker, not a poker, a stoker, which is not spiked, it's rounded at the end. But they can't find the one that the grieving sister of the deceased gave him, so they assume that's the murder weapon, that he hid it, although as it turns out later on they find it was in the house the whole time and hadn't been moved for months, so definitely wasn't a murder weapon. That just gets ignored, which is just infuriating. Oh right, it combines with the map, that's right, we've had this before. Like in the Making the Murderer case, with all the evidence the police planted to get a conviction, there's a lot of similarities here where the problem, it's indicative of a bigger problem, which is the American justice system is such that all the state cares about is getting a prosecution. They want a guilty verdict. They don't really care if that's the truth, they just want a verdict. And the defense lawyer who stays with him for 10 years, he's so despondent by the end, he's so upset with the guilty verdict, when reasonable doubt would mean that you have to say not guilty. He actually uses the Scottish legal system as an example at one point. But first of all, before I go into that, thank you Tony Allen for 11 months in a row. Insert witty joke here. No, I'm going to talk more about the criminal justice system being shit. No, I'm talking about a different documentary where the same thing happens. I lost my train of thought. Oh, the Scottish justice system. He brings up the point that in Scotland, you don't just have guilty and not guilty. You have guilty, and not proven. I think this is also the documentary... Where is it? The crime happened in North Carolina, I think it was. I missed what I was supposed to do. What was I supposed to do? Like not dodge roll, was it? Or not take damage? I would just assume it's one of those two. He didn't give me a gun, so it must be one of those two. Yeah, there we go. So there is no, like, not proven where he might be guilty, but we can't prove it, so you have to say... Oh, that's more curse. Oh dear. So you have to say, can't convict him, there's not enough evidence. They just don't do that in America. The other thing that really got my back up is that it's revealed fairly early on that the man in question was not being faithful to his wife. He was having sex with men. As it turns out, he's bisexual. He was very clear, though, that he did not have a relationship. It was purely about sex. And it had no bearing on the case at hand, because he wasn't having an affair. He met prostitutes for sex, and that was it. The prosecution discovers this, and although the defense fight to not have it mentioned because of no reason to bring it up, they try very hard to bring it up to perform a character assassination. As it turns out, by random chance, I guess, also, a lot of the jury is on the older side. I don't know how it is in North Carolina, or how it was 10 years ago, but it feels a lot like the way a lot of people talk about it, that being gay, although he was bisexual, but being gay is seen as a bad thing, and they use it against him. They paint a picture. It was like in Making a Murderer, where they released all the information, like the gory details of how the victim died, so that people would remember that before sitting on a jury. They wanted to exploit people's prejudices to make them see this very nice guy, or at least he certainly comes across as a nice guy, in a negative light because of their prejudice. It was very upsetting. Why was he so slow to summon there? All the more upsetting... Oh no. All the more upsetting that the judge allowed it. Oh, we don't have a synergy? I was sure we would have something. Well, no need to use it if we don't have a synergy, so I guess there's a plus side to everything. I also shouldn't really be using that. I guess we'll use Origami until it runs out of ammo. Hello, Shiro. Does anyone have any idea about... Like, is North Carolina very accepting of LGBT today? Again, keep in mind, this started... The first trial was 10 years ago. And I think the retrial happened in 2016, and that was after a 2-year wait. Or rather, it was going to happen, but as I say, I think he takes a plea bargain just to be done with it. Which is very unacceptable, but... They are massively anti-LGBT. Oh. So the prosecution, again, whose only goal is to get a conviction regardless of what actually happened, exploited that by making sure that his infidelity with the opposite, or the same sex rather, was mentioned in court. That's very upsetting. Another thing is they tried to paint him as having this like monstrous temper, so their thinking was maybe he was eloping with a male person even though there's no proof. The only like correspondence he ever had with them was to arrange sex. But they presumed that the wife found out about him seeing these men. They argued and he killed her by accident in a fit of rage. The only person they could find to say that he ever had a temper was when the sister of the victim kind of changed her tune because she wanted someone to blame. And then he points out, she only met me twice, and once was at a wedding, and once was whenever else. There was no proof ever provided by anybody that he had any kind of temper. Like, nobody could prove it. Another thing that I think was probably used against him was that he had apparently run for mayor of the town they were from once, and failed. And that he did tell some lies, like he sustained a injury in Vietnam when really it happened in Osaka or wherever afterwards. That doesn't prove he murdered someone. Like, and even if you think he was a bad person, the evidence alone, it doesn't prove it. And that's the whole thing. The reason the retrial happens is because the shady guy who was so sure he understood how blood patterns worked, and that proved that she was beaten to death, not plunged down the stairs, either by force or by accident, he goes to prison. because it's found that he has been tampering with evidence for however many cases. He got somebody sent away for murder for 18 years. No, 18 years was making a murder. I think it was like 17. It was very close in number. And his evidence, he had evidence that proved the guy's innocence. So they were like, well, you can't trust anything he said. The defense based their entire case on this guy saying, oh, yep, she was definitely beaten to death. So we have to have a retrial. And the judge agrees, finally. But even, like, at the trial, it shows a lot of footage from the trial. Like, 4 episodes of it is just, like, stuff from the trial, mostly. They show this shady prick getting interviewed and being so sure... I wrote through that. So sure of himself that, yeah, this is right. And then years later, they get all these actual experts in blood and whatnot saying, like, is anything he's saying true? Like, no. We've never done that. Where is he getting this? And the state didn't care at the time because they found someone who'd made up their mind and their story and his matched. It's like, how can you trust the justice system when it works like that? That was flawless. The game disagrees, but the game is incorrect. People cornered by power suck. Yep, it certainly seems like that. Thank you, Stabicus, for 23 months in a row subscription. Came for the gameplay, stay for the history lessons. Let's see. Let's try Crestfaller. Yeah, I have Mimic Tooth Necklace. They're all mimics. For some reason, it affects the pedestals as well as chests. By that logic, every room should have a wall mimic, but, you know. Like, all through that program, not once does the guy even show a hint of anger. Disappointment and sadness, yep. Like, one of the first things at the trial is they play his 911 call. And they're like, oh yeah, he's faking his emotions there. And they're listening to it in court, and he's crying, his children are crying, everyone is crying, but they're like, no, he's faking. That's not real emotion you're hearing right now. It sounds like real emotion to me. It sounds like somebody panicked because they just found their wife dying. And it's very, very hard to listen to. And yet, the jury sides with them. And I don't understand. Unless, again, it's because, oh, well, he had gay sex while he's married to a woman. I guess that means he's guilty of murder. Or if he isn't, hey, we get to screw one of them over, so that's worth it. At one point he's talking, well, none of his children are his, I believe. See, this is where, like, things get a little bit murky because he used to live in Germany. He has an extended family. He had someone he was in a relationship with. She also died at the bottom of a staircase. And this is where, like, the prosecution's like, oh, he's killed before. So he's killed again. 13 years later, but hey, he's killed someone again. What actually happened in Germany was that this lady he was in a relationship with had a brain aneurysm. And she fell down the stairs and died of a brain aneurysm. But they frame it like he murdered her. There's no proof that he did. But it is a bit of a coincidence, even though they're 13 years apart. But after that, even though he wasn't married to this girl at the time, he loved her so much and the girl's kids that he adopts them. I don't know if he legally adopts them, but they stay with him and he raises them. And that doesn't exactly seem like the actions of someone who committed murder. Although then the prosecution say, well, maybe he did that to... Well, no. They're showing it to a test jury, I think, and one of them says, well, maybe he just did that to cover his tracks, you know, dedicate his life to raising children to cover up a murder. So yeah, I know conspiracy theories are rife in America, but come on now. I had something else I wanted to get angry about regarding that. I forgot what it was now. Let's see. It was tangentially connected to... Oh, yeah. It was like his adopted kids. I don't think any of them are his biological kids, and yet they all emphatically believe he is innocent. Oh, wait, no. One sister eventually turns against him, and that's the one who is close with the sister who again, she just wants someone to blame. Which is understandable, it's part of grief. But then he's talking to his kids and their extended families that are still siding with him years later. And he's pointing out to them, like, I don't have hate in my heart. If you want to see hate, just look at how whatever the sister's name is acting. That's hate. And he never had that for their mother. And I think that was pretty obvious. Now, it could just be that he is an amazing criminal mastermind that plotted 2 murders 13 years apart to steal their money, even though he was a successful author. Just because, I don't know, he was a soldier. Maybe he went nuts. Although he points out, like, he never had any form of PTSD after coming back from Vietnam, but he spent 8 years in prison, and that's when he gets out. He describes that he walks around crying all day, and he went to a doctor being like, stop me crying all day. And he said, well, are you depressed? I said, no, I'm fine, I just walk around and I cry. And he says, well, that's just, you're so accustomed to life in a box. You have to readjust to living outside. It's a form of PTSD, but not the same as the kind of thing a soldier would go through. Or had gone through, because he was a soldier. Like the sister of the murdered and the daughter who sides against him, they go looking for stuff he wrote. Fiction and non-fiction, because he wrote for a paper as well. Finding anything that would imply that, oh, maybe he's just got a boner for murder. And I don't understand it at all. Oh, here he kind of wrote about how love is death. Maybe that means he killed her because he loves her. As it turns out, it's never used in the case though, because they would only be able to use it against him if he took the stand, and he opted not to. On his lawyer's advice. Which seems to be a recurring thing for the accused in murder cases. But yeah, that's The Staircase. With such an unassuming name, I saw it like in the list of documentaries, and I was like, I don't want to watch anything about Staircase. But it turned out to be the best documentary I've watched. Even more heartbreaking than Making a Murderer, because as I say, I think the Making the Murderer guy did it. Although I do understand they're making another season of that, because apparently some new evidence has come to light. I think it's likely he did it, but I don't think it can be proven unless you include all the evidence that the cops planted in that case. But in this case, this guy isn't a murderer. Certainly not a 2-time murderer. It's shocking. And I feel safer reaching that conclusion because, as I say, it's not filmed in as much of a biased way as Making a Murderer is. Yes, yeah, that's basically the reason they give, because if you put themselves up, it doesn't really do them any favours, especially if the jury doesn't like them already, and the prosecution can find something for you to incriminate yourself with. Guess I'll buy that, because I kind of need it. Yeah, in cases of an accident, you definitely want somebody to blame. You want to believe it was foul play, because then you don't have to think about a life just being taken by random accidents. Well, not even a DIY accident, just tripping down the stairs in such a way that you fatally hurt yourself. But to be that vindictive, to just ignore the new evidence, to hear that the bloodstain expert was full of crap and had no idea what he was talking about, and the blood was not indicative of being beaten to death, to just ignore that and be like, no, you're not getting off unless you claim or unless you agree to say you murdered her. So that's a level of vindication that makes me jealous, quite frankly. So yeah, if you have Netflix, I would say definitely check it out. It's a bit long, 13-hour-long episodes. Started yesterday and only just got around to watching almost the rest of it today. It's what I'm going to be doing right after the stream. It will make you lose faith in mankind and the American justice system, which is what I've said for pretty much every one of these ones I've watched. It is a shame, because again, I know he's going to take a plea bargain, because I read the synopsis of the final 2 episodes. So he is going to make some kind of deal where he says, yeah, I murdered her, even though he didn't. Although as it turns out, there is a special type of plea in America. I've forgotten what they call it, but it's a plea where you say, yes, I'm saying that yes, I did it, not because I did it, because I want this to end. I don't remember what it's called. No, not 13-hour episodes, 13 one-hour episodes. I misspoke if I said that. No, it's not a no contest. It's a very specific type of pleading guilty. They called it something. It was a name. Began with an A, I think? A Marn plea or something? It's probably based on a case where it happened. If you Google, like, maybe it's specific to North Carolina law, I don't know. No lieutenant? No, that's not it. An Alfred plea, that's the one. Yeah, Valnar found it. Don't know who the hell Alfred is, but... Or Alford, rather. But yeah, that's the name of the plea. Yeah, that's the plea where you just admit guilt because you've had enough. But not because you're agreeing that you did it. Get out of here. An Alfred plea, also known as a Kennedy plea in West Virginia. Alfred plead guilty. United States law is a guilty plea in criminal court whereby a defendant in a criminal case does not admit to the criminal act and asserts innocence, rather. I don't really need any of these. I'll take the ballot. Oh, apparently we have a synergy with the ballot. With Origami as well. Hello, Frog Lawyer. Thank you for 18 months in a row. We need a second Twitch baby name. Hello, everyone. And there did 18 months go. Our second Twitch baby name will be Alfred. No, Alfred. Alfred. I guess I'll just go for the boss. Why not? My voice is actually sore from getting so impassioned about talking about this. I got too into it. It's scary how much it matters whether or not the jury like you as a defendant. It should only matter whether or not your guilt or innocence is proven, but it doesn't. They also have to think you're a nice person. Or a person that matches their sensibilities, which is just... Like, who's to say the people on the jury aren't bastards or weirdos? You can't know, and that's where the fault of the system is. Yeah, I don't know if it's the same in America, but when you're sworn in or agree to be a juror here, you're entering into an agreement where you're saying you're not going to be prejudiced against the defendant. And if there is any risk of being prejudiced, like for instance if you knew them or like you were at school with them or whatever, you get dismissed and someone else gets picked. I don't know if that's the... No, I should be using Demon Tag probably. Oh yeah, you can say one thing and say another, like the forensic guy who's full of crap and lying and falsifying evidence. He did his oath. He certified that he was telling the truth, and as it turns out he wasn't. Also, I don't know what it is about all of these documentaries, but the prosecution lawyers always come across as assholes. Always. And again, it's not really in the way it's presented, because it's just showing them talking. Although in the Making the Murder case, it actually turns out they were an asshole because they lost their position for being corrupt or whatever it was. Well, we definitely can't make it down to hell with this run, and kind of succinctly finished talking about them there. Both programs highly recommended. One will make you cherish your childhood, the other will make you wish for nuclear war. Still worth watching, though, even if it is yet another travesty of justice. Prosecutors usually have type A personalities. Does the A stand for asshole? Is that the punchline? The prosecutor in Making a Murderer is exceptionally soft-spoken. It's just he's sleazy as hell. And again, he goes out of his way to make sure that the character assassination happens before the trial does and the jury is picked, so that any jury picked already has a negative view of the accused. Shocking. Thank you, Rido, for the bits that got timed out by Nightbot.
Ooh.
That's what you get. I'm stretching. It was a good run. That was almost an hour on the dot. Anyway, for those who watched on YouTube, hope you enjoyed. See you next time. Ta for now.